right. Hello, DFS community. Welcome into the Super Bowl edition of one of the most accurate DFS shows in the industry. This is episode number 63 of the Adjusted Line Play Report, where we take a deep dive into the play in the trenches to determine game scripts and player outcomes. This show is presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. I am your host, Todd Hoffman. You can find myself over on Twitter at Todzilla1337, and you can find Zilla Fantasy Elite over on Twitter at Zilla Fantasy. All right, folks, we're going to do a Super Bowl edition here. It's going to be more of a kind of a Thursday night theory play and a betting show here for the Super Bowl. I'm not getting into the DFS stuff because there's not really one game sample size of DFS, but we'll get into that. Super Bowl edition, last one of the 2023 season here, so let's get into it. Super Bowl, San Francisco, Kansas City. It's a 47.5 Vegas game total with the Vegas line at a 2-point favorite for San Francisco, giving San Francisco a 24.75 team implied total, Kansas City at 22.75. Just getting into the offensive pass protection, offensive pass DVOA versus Kansas City's pass rush and their pass DVOA. San Francisco number 18 in offensive pass protection, Kansas City number 1 in the defensive pass rush. This means San Francisco gives up sacks at a little bit below average rate. So too much, I guess, if you're a San Francisco fan that they get sacked. Kansas City number 1 in the league in generating sacks, especially in situations where you wouldn't expect them. So with this, I expect Kansas City's defense to be putting a lot of pressure on San Francisco, and Purdy taking a lot of sacks there. With this pressure, I do expect Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator there for Kansas City, to apply enough pressure and get Brock Purdy in situations where he's just not comfortable. I do like the over a half an interception betting line, so that's going to be pretty much in any of my bets. I wouldn't be shocked to see him have 2 interceptions in this, so the over a half an interception I think is a good one. In terms of pass DVOA, San Francisco, super efficient, one of the best teams in that, or they are the best team in that category for offensive pass protection, but Kansas City number 5 in the defensive pass DVOA. San Francisco might find it a little bit harder than they're used to throw the ball, especially with Brock Purdy under pressure. That might affect things a little bit. With that kind of being under pressure, having this very efficient game through the air, I would say Ayuk is a little bit more of a fade. I think he's more of the classic downfield receiver for San Francisco. I think he has a little bit poorer game than he would like to have in the Super Bowl, but then what's that going to mean? I think that's going to mean a little bit more targets for those underneath guys like Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. I think those 3 are the ones that end up doing a lot of the heavy lifting for San Francisco and their offense in the pass game to this week. So keep that in mind. That's the pass protection. Getting into the run game, super juicy for San Francisco here. Number 2 in offensive run blocking, number 2 in offensive run DVOA. Kansas City actually in the red, number 25 in stopping the run, and number 27 in the defensive run DVOA. What this is suggesting is that Christian McCaffrey should go bonkers on the ground against this Kansas City team. Depending on how the game script goes, if Kansas City is in the lead by any amount, or if neutral game or it's tied within 3, I would expect San Francisco to actually run the ball a lot on Kansas City and be very successful in that department. Kansas City actually has been gashed pretty significantly by zone schemes in the run game, so I'd expect that with San Francisco being able to do anything, but having that zone scheme being pretty popular, I would expect Christian McCaffrey to have quite a few rushing yards in this. Again, given game script, if they're getting blown out of the water, it's going to be a different story. But with that, let's go look at the betting lines for McCaffrey and what his rushing yard total is, and it's sitting at 89.5 rush yards. I think that's certainly one, again, depending on game script, that he could get the over on. He's been at 90 versus Detroit, so he just bested that. 98 against Green Bay. And then back in Christmas time when he's playing Baltimore, super good defense there in the run game, 103 yards there. So I do like the over for Christian McCaffrey's rushes. The only thing to be concerned about is if Kansas City scores and gets them in a situation where San Francisco has to pass. I think Purdy's going to be struggling in that department in that scenario, and we could see McCaffrey not get as many rush attempts as we'd like. Now, getting on to the Kansas City side, they are number 2 in offensive pass protection. San Francisco number 17 in the defensive pass rush. I wouldn't expect San Francisco to get a ton of pressure on Kansas City in this, or at least get home to get sacked. So Mahomes, I think, will have a good pocket around him in this particular game, which is going to be good for their pass attack there. Generally, when that's the case, you get a little bit more deep attacks. So I could see Justin Watson and MVS maybe having a pretty solid game where they get 2 or 3 catches and crest 60 yards on those. I wouldn't be shocked there. Otherwise, I think Travis Kelce is going to have a big game here. Really kind of funneling that pass offense between him and Rashee Rice. So those are kind of the 2 main options, but I'm just saying like MVS and Justin Watson I think can come through. Even if it's just one catch, I think they can probably reach their receiving totals. Let's go look at those. We have MVS at 19.5. Let's go look at Justin Watson, where he's at. Justin Watson at 16.5. I like that one a lot better than MVS. I think Watson can get that on 1 catch. He does have a 1.5 receptions total. I don't hate that one either, but I think Justin Watson and MVS both there at 1.5 receiving. 1.5 receptions, where MVS is at 19.5 yards, and we have Justin Watson at 16.5. I would like the Justin Watson 16.5 line there, which I think he can get in 1 catch. So with them having plenty of time in the pocket, I think he's going to be a beneficiary there in that pass game. The pass DVOA number 4 for San Francisco's defense. Kansas City number 8 in the offensive DVOA category. Again, pretty even there, similar to San Francisco's. Really, I think when you get all those situations, the studs eat, and I think, again, that's going to be the Travis Kelce. There's going to be time to throw. Kelce, he's at 6.5 receptions for his line, at least on Sleeper. I don't know what his yardage total is because Sleeper doesn't have a yardage total for him in this particular game. It's just 6.5 receptions. So I do like the over for Travis Kelce and all the Swifties out there. I think he'll have a pretty solid game here in the Super Bowl come Sunday. All right, how's that run game looking for Kansas City? They're number 19 in offensive run blocking, 17th in the run DVOA. San Francisco number 10 in stopping the run, and number 15 in run DVOA. It's pretty close. Really what that's telling me, it's an even up matchup, and typically in these situations where the offensive line and defensive line are pretty evenly matched in the run game, I say studs eat in those scenarios because the running back, I think, can overcome that stalemate on the offensive line by just being better than the defenders around them. I don't necessarily know if that is Pacheco's game. I think he's certainly a capable running back, especially when he gets room to run. I just don't think he's got like the greatest vision in the world, and this might be a scenario where we see him struggle a little bit. His rush yards total is 67.5. I actually like the under on that. In this particular scenario, I think Kansas City is going to be able to move the ball a little bit better in the air, according to this. But again, Kansas City kind of middle of the pack there in the run DVOA. San Francisco is not particularly great. They're middle of the pack there in run DVOA as well. Maybe Kansas City finds it a little bit easier to run the ball than they're perhaps used to, being a middle of the pack team there. So under on Pacheco, 67.5 yards. I think that will be what he ends up doing, and the betting odds are a little bit more juice on the under than the over for that. So, a little bit less juice on the under. So, predicting that the most likely outcome is that he'll be under that total versus over. So, I think this is going to be a very good game. Based off of the offensive and defensive line play metrics here. The one thing that stands out to me is Kansas City's offensive pass protection should be very good. San Francisco's pass protection should be very bad. So kind of opposites there. I think Kansas City has plenty of time to throw, which is really what they do best. And then San Francisco probably going to be under pressure there, despite them being a super efficient team through the air. I think they're going to be under pressure. You might see Purdy struggle in this. In the grandest of stages, biggest of stages for football, I think we could see him with a multi-turnover game. The one big mismatch in this matchup, though, is that run game. San Francisco 2 across the board on offense, and Kansas City number 25 and number 27 on the defensive run blocking side or defensive run stopping side. So watch out. I think McCaffrey could run all over Kansas City if Kansas City finds themselves behind in this by 3 to 7. I really think McCaffrey is just going to get leaned on and have a ton of success there. With that being said, he's probably not going to get 100% of the carries. So going into the rush yards total, I think the backup there, Eli Mitchell, he's at 4.5 yards. If he gets 2 or 3 carries in this game, he's going to be above that for sure. So keep that in mind. I think he is worth a fly or two on the more. Going to get a little bit better odds actually on the over on that 4.5 versus the under. So take that into mind. As far as the overall game total, if you can bet that, I cannot here in Minnesota. San Francisco plays really slow. You see them all in red here despite the situation. They're one of the slowest teams in those situations. And then Kansas City, kind of a mismatch. Offensive pace of play when they're within 6 is actually number 8. When they're leading, though, they're one of the slowest teams. And otherwise kind of 11th and 20th for these other ones. It's not like they're super fast or super slow, with San Francisco being a super slow paced game. Just the way this offensive stuff is shaping up, like I think San Francisco could have some turnovers. Kansas City is kind of a neutral, run blocking game there. A little bit better in the pass game, but they're evenly matched in that department. I just think this hits the under of that 47.5. The 2-point line for San Francisco, I think, is about correct with this run game being so dominant. If they do get a lead, I think they can just kind of manage that for the whole game. But if they get behind, it's going to be tough sledding, I think, with Brock Purdy and being under pressure in those particular situations. So, I really don't have anything on the Vegas line. If I was a betting person, I'd probably take Kansas City with that line at -2. But I think overall it's going to be a back and forth affair. I think it's going to be a very good game, and I think it will be within 1 or 2 points here. I wouldn't be shocked to see 20, 21, something like that. Overall, just good Super Bowl game. So if you're not a fan of either of these teams, or even if you are, you can expect a very good game here. If it's going to get sideways, I think one way or the other, it's going to be Kansas City drubbing the 49ers. And then, if San Francisco wins, I think it's going to be a tough fought back and forth affair. And I think that's the most likely outcome regardless of which team wins. If I had to make a prediction based off of the DVOAs and stuff with the offensive defensive line, I would probably give the slight edge to San Francisco with that run game matchup being so good, being able to control the ball there and keep the ball out of Kansas City's hands. And kind of with Kansas City's even up matchup there, they might not score a ton of touchdowns. They might be kicking some field goals there. So Harrison Butker, I'm not sure if he's got a line on field goals. Let's go look there. It's usually 1.5, but we'll just go look quick. Field goals made. No, we don't even have the top kickers on there. They just have Moody at 1.5 for San Francisco. It doesn't look like they have a kicker for Kansas City, at least on Sleeper. So wouldn't be shocked to see him get 2 field goals in this either. So keep that in mind. I think that's going to do it for this Super Bowl episode. Hopefully we can go out there, make some good bets on these Vegas totals, on the game script, and maybe some of those player props that we had mentioned. My favorite one is the Brock Purdy over a half an interception. I think McCaffrey is going to be pretty solid on the ground, so that 89.5, he's been over that pretty much every game in the playoffs here and against Baltimore right before the playoffs. So I like that one as well. And then getting on the Kansas City side, I think I like the Travis Kelce 6.5 receptions the most. Justin Watson over 16.5 yards the most as well. And then if I was going to do an under, probably Pacheco in that run game. All right. Thanks for a wonderful 2023 season with the adjusted line play report. We'll be back next year, hopefully better, more improved, and maybe we can get some more info into this particular report to make our decisions a little bit better. All right. I appreciate everybody watching. Have a good one. Bye.